I'm Mike McDonald. I am 32 and I was born in Masan, South Korea. I was adopted at 3 months old and I grew up in New Jersey. My sister was adopted 2 years after I was adopted in 1987. So she's 2 years younger than me, not biologically related. Also a Korean adoptee, yeah. I was very fortunate to have parents that actually wanted to help me integrate my adoptive identity into who I am. So, I went to Holt Camp every summer. They took me to cultural events. Power Rangers was really big when I was a kid. I wanted to do karate because of Power Rangers. They were like, well, we found you this Taekwondo place. So I think that was kind of their way of gently pushing me into Korean culture without being overbearing about it. They weren't enrolling me in language class and making me go learn Korean, which I kind of wish they had done now, but back then it probably would have been too much for a 6-year-old to be like going to a Korean church and learning Korean every Sunday. At the time, I didn't know of any monthly or regular scheduled meetups or anything like that with other adoptees of my age. It was just Holt Camp. So 1 week, 1 summer, once a year, I got to meet up with other adoptees, hang out with them for that whole week. We didn't even talk about adoption. It's not like we were like adoption for like a whole week or anything. It was just seeing other people like you, knowing that you had this unspoken bond and very similar experiences from the area, that you could just kind of be yourself for a week. And then at the end of that week, you were kind of ripped away from that. To hide that away inside yourself for a whole year, I think, was very, very painful for me, but it also became just part of my identity. In 2007, I went to the gathering in Korea, and I was fortunate enough to have my friend and founder of also known as Holly McGinnis go with me to Holt, the orphanage and organization through which I was adopted. The Korea file did, I think, have a little bit more information regarding the circumstances surrounding my abandonment, which was that I was born in and named after the hospital I was born in Masan, which is Kangdong-gil Hospital. So my birth name is Kangdong-gil. And I was relinquished immediately after birth. Since then, they have told me that the rest of the records, basically regarding my birth and relinquishment, were lost in a fire. I guess it was a private hospital and there was a big fire and all the records were lost. Since talking to many other adoptees, I have found that that is not an uncommon story, that there have been a miraculous number of fires and floods in Korea which have gotten rid of plenty of records regarding people's births and their relinquishments and their adoptions, etc. So I think there's an association, there's like a thought when you're adopted and you're a kid, like, I'm gonna go back to my birth country and I'll finally be accepted, or I'll finally be in my own skin. And you go there and you realize that's not the case at all. You go there and you realize you can't speak the language. Maybe you can read the language, maybe you can understand it, maybe you can speak it, but you're not gonna be living the language. And you will be separated from the community for that. My experience was here in America, like, where are you from? Where are you really from? But where are you really from? In Korea, it was, well, why can't you speak Korean? But why can't you speak Korean? Oh, you're adopted. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was my separation from that culture, and I've never felt more American than when I lived in Korea. So it is a love-hate relationship when I went over there. And then when I came back to America, I also felt even more alienated coming back. I was like, because you see, I would go to Korea and I would do like Buddhist temple stays and try to live a little bit more sparse and stuff like that. You come back to America and you go to Walmart and you're like, why? Like, who needs all of this? But it's a culture shock both ways. And I think the harder part of being an adoptee and the strength you need to find as an adoptee is to believe in yourself and like form your own identity, because you're not necessarily going to be fully accepted into any of the societies that you live in. So you have to build a society of your own and live in yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. That's not an easy thing to do. It's hard. It's very difficult. It takes a lot of confidence. I think a lot of adoptees feel that way. I think a lot of teenagers feel that way, but adoptees, I think, are maybe more prone to it. I mean, the suicide rate for adoptees is 4 times higher than the national average. I think the one thing that really kind of pulled me through is that every time I thought seriously about like committing suicide or how I would commit suicide was, who would I have left behind? It's not easy being on the other side either. I think that's one of the more emotional things for me. She was actually a friend of a friend. And the friend in the middle was always like, you guys should meet each other, you should talk, stuff like that. She doesn't really talk to other adoptees or anything. She doesn't have anybody else to talk to this stuff about. And being the selfish, my time is precious high schooler that I was like, oh, yeah, I'll call her. Sure, we'll get in touch. We should hang out sometime. Never got around to it. And she died. And just that feeling of guilt, like maybe there was something I could have done. Maybe if we had talked. Maybe if we had hung out, talked on the phone, whatever. She might still be around. But that's also a very selfish thing to say too. I don't know. That's a lot of weight to bear. And I'm not sure if that's fair to myself to do that, but it's something that I think about every now and then. There's no one adoptee culture. There's no one adoptee experience. Everybody is so different. And that's something that being from New Jersey and the Bridge and Tunnel crowd really drew me to New York. Because it was like, nobody thinks anything here about who you are because there's so many different stories. You could just melt into the crowd. Being an adoptee is definitely a huge part of my identity, but so is being from New Jersey, so is being a New Yorker, so is being just an American. And I think those things and my experiences overall are kind of what define me, not necessarily just being an adoptee. My name is Mike McDonald, and this is my Korean American story.